And we will try to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up.
And
welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. This is John Edward Keogh. He is executive producer of Managing Media. He is president of Hollywood Film Group. He is a contributor to This Week in Worcester. He's my friend John.
Hi, that's me.
It was an interesting week in Worcesterdom. Emphasis on dumb.
Worcester stuff going on. Yeah, I guess so. Say that.
But first, let's talk briefly about you have an event next weekend that will prohibit us from broadcasting this show. Tell us about it.
Oh my goodness, that is true. Next week is the Dead of Winter Horror Festival Year 2, 2025. So on Saturday and Sunday at Mechanics Hall, and a second event at Ralph's Diner. That's on Saturday night. The horror shall descend upon the city of Worcester, the doom and the gloom, and all the fun stuff. All the ghouls and ghosts will come out to freeze their themselves, and it's gonna be fun. There's 25 movies. There's a bunch of panels. We have a ton of vendors this time. We got the cast reunion of the Toxic Avenger from 1980, first ever cast reunion. James Jones from Love on the Spectrum is going to be there. A ton of people. Obviously, the actors and actresses from the movie that I produced, Soulless. So Tommy Dwyer will be there. Jordan Tofolo, Devin Petrie. They'll be there signing autographs and all that stuff. And it's just going to be awesome. That's it's exciting. It's a year worth of work. Tickets are flying. We're on the radio on FM The Pike. There's been all kinds of fun advertising stuff going on. So it's exciting. I'm exhausted.
Fair enough. And tickets are available where?
Tickets are available at deadofwinterentertainment.com/festival.
Excellent. I was there last year. It was a lot of fun. It was not. I think you're up to what, 17 days now this year?
Say that again.
I think you're up to 17 days now this year.
2 days, just 2 days.
Oh, 2. Oh, I thought it was 17.
Just 2 days. But maybe eventually. I mean, that's the goal, is for it to be to build and to grow, and hopefully people come out, they have a good time, and they get what we're trying to do, which is to celebrate Worcester and bring cool things to Worcester. And I think this is really cool. It's the dead of winter. Obviously, it's cold, and there's literally nothing else going on except at the DCU Center. There's like a some kind of rodeo thing. So, hey, go to the rodeo thing, or you can come see some vampires and ghosts and goblins and all kinds of fun stuff. And a bunch of local vendors from Worcester. That's Entertainment is one of the sponsors this year. Let's see, Bree Sweet Treats will be there. Mr. Munchies. It's going to be a tremendous time. Just check out the website. You can see all the different people going. And 11 world premiere movies. 11. First time they'll ever be seen. So that's
and they're all shorts, correct?
Everything is shorts. Yep. This is the second year, so we're sticking with shorts for now, and then hopefully next year maybe we'll expand it to feature length films. But the goal is to build it, kind of naturally, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And the the acclaimed guide to the Dead of Winter Festival will be appearing on This Week in Worcester this week.
That's right. The guide. The guide.
Okay, so on our agenda today. So also, programming note, we will not be doing this next Sunday because we will be dying in winter. Yeah. So, as some may have heard, there was a resolution or a petition for a resolution to the Worcester City Council. And that resolution, amongst other things, said that Worcester shall be a sanctuary city for trans folks. Now, this has nothing to do with immigration, so you can turn that. You can stop yelling about that already. It was, another word, another phrase proposed during the meeting, and we'll get to that, was a safe haven. You can be trans here and be safe. A whole bunch of people, of course, are very angry about this. I don't really care what Fox News or whatever national coverage. I don't care. That's irrelevant to me. But for local folks that were so upset about this, I've heard perversion that was just posted on the post announcing the show, a little pre-post I did a couple hours ago that the show was going to be on. Yeah, and somebody decided we don't want this to be a trans sanctuary city for trans folks because it's a perversion and we don't want to be around it. And I've heard all kinds of other disgusting things said. I will just submit to you this evidence from, I think, 2012 or 13, group of, academic types. They went out and searched a bunch of studies and did a bunch of searching and found twins where one sibling is trans. In there, now, of course, this is a small sample size because twins aren't very common anyway, never mind twins with, one sibling that's trans. What they found was identical twins, which is when one sperm makes two babies, the egg splits. So this is people that have the closest possible genetic profile, match, or have a genetic profile that is closer than is the closest you can get because they are essentially from of one became two, and they compared that to non-identical twins, that is two sperms, two eggs, and of non-identical twins, guess what? Both siblings being trans was they didn't find any. Of identical twins, both siblings being trans was over 30%. So if you go with the kind of rule of thumb that trans people in society are about 0.5% to 1%, that would mean that identical twins have the likelihood of both being trans that is more than 30 to 60 times more than the general population of 0.5% to 1%. So while the specific genetic marker that would enable scientists to understand what is causing that, what gene is causing that, or what series of genes, that has not been identified. But so this is certainly not settled science. But if you think about that for just a second, you might think, kind of seems like there's something genetic here. So stop it with your stupidity and your bigoted nonsense. I'm so tired of a-holes being a-holes. I'm so tired of it. There is science. You're just too stupid to read it. Stop it. Now, that rant is out of the way. I had that one locked and loaded because this person who just commented irritated me.
So it was interesting that we made the national news, for these things, and just the approach that, I really don't watch the news. I haven't for many, many years, especially the national news. And when I say that, I mean that as blanket as I can, because they're all, as far as I'm concerned, they're all on the same team and all nonsensical anyways. But
so I'll watch like network, like ABC or NBC, like at dinner time ish, like for a few minutes, and I inevitably every time that I see it, I end up yelling about story selection, like why are they doing this stupid story? So I mostly just yell at the television when I do it.
I do get concerned when there's like the same exact story on multiple networks, like even if it's like something that I'm interested in, I immediately become suspicious that there's some like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness, why is this and this and that? But anyways, I have never actually seen the Laura Ingraham show before. I did not know.
Why would you?
But I decided to check it out because Jim Polito, local Worcester crank, radio crank, decided to,
Oh, I have a lot to say about Polito. This is an award-winning journalist. He did real journalism back in the day, and now he's off. First, he was doing a Rush Limbaugh impression. Now he's doing like a Rush meets MAGA impression. It's all sad that this person who used to be a really good journalist has turned into such a crank.
So in the interview, he admits he hasn't lived here for years, right? Which he hasn't, right? And he says he doesn't ever want to go back. And it's entirely based on like a couple clips that they took from Tuesday night's meeting. And they went to the clips and they really just focused on the appearance of the people that they had clipped, right? They didn't listen to the substance of what they were saying.
Nope. Right.
They just focused on the look, and so there was a lot of that, a lot of making fun of people for how they look. And I don't understand as an individual that if you watch something like that, how that makes you happy that they're like making fun of people. Because that's really what it amounted to. Mm-hmm. And then that Jim Polito, a person who has not lived in the city in years, and has long ago disassociated himself with being a Worcester guy, right? And was more like a Massachusetts guy for a long time. Why that opinion would matter to you at all. I had a friend text me, said, that's probably more to the conservative side, that lives in New York, and was like, oh, Worcester made the national news. Like, this is something that like registers with people. And I don't know that anybody in that group like even knew what happened, right? No. They didn't know what happened that night. They didn't know like the preparation for it. They don't know the incident between Councilor Nguyen and Councilor Merrill Carlson and the mayor, and the dueling press releases and all this, like all the context behind the meeting was lost, right? And so it just makes you not want to listen to the news again. So my big conclusion is I'm right not to watch the national news of any way, or especially the opinion shows. And then they don't know what they're talking about. Worcester is very much its own entity, and people just don't realize what's happening here. And so, and I think in another sense, our local politicians get away with something. So, because I saw Mayor Petty take some victory laps this week in relation to this issue, and it's very interesting to see that, because there was this definitive pushback from him, and then now he's going on saying he's the champion of it. So very interesting how political money can sway opinions locally here very, very quickly. And obviously obvious motion, but also how much hatred people have for each other, and just raw ignorance of an issue. Regardless of your opinion on it, it's really difficult to understand why you would spout anything if you don't know what you're talking about. I've had people tell me this week, now President Trump is going to come for the city of Worcester and take away all the money, and I'm like, well, no, it was a local thing, and it has nothing to do with the federal government, and it's not even a law. It was just a statement. It was and it was a statement to affirm laws that are already really in place in Massachusetts, state level laws. It has nothing to do with the federal government at all, really. And so but people believe that, Tom. They really truly do. They're convinced that somehow this is going to bring, X this or X that or whatever. And it doesn't. It doesn't. It just means that, and by the way, the city council taking the vote, good for the vote that they took. However, I don't know that it means anything different other than that the community came together and pushed for a like a statement to be made, and that statement was made. And it's disheartening to me that it worked for this community, but it didn't work for the ceasefire petition, and it didn't work for the folks who were hurt by the police department, but it worked for this. And so it really makes me feel like it's performative, right, by the city council. Not to say that there aren't individuals on the city council who believe in what this is, but it's very interesting which groups can get things done.
Yeah. So yeah, it has been interesting, the mayor's post resolution discussion about this, because his vote on Tuesday does not match with his vote the previous Thursday at the school committee.
At the school committee, right?
So a similar resolution was brought by school committee member Sue Mailman. It was called the LGBTQ plus Safe Schools Resolution. And it specifically, and I wrote about this, it's on the site now. I wrote a column about this. It was specifically tailored to that community, right? And the backdrop here is you mentioned the comments allegedly made by Councilor Merrill Carlson using a trans slur, allegedly, again in reference to Councilor Nguyen. But the other backdrop here is that the federal government, those right-wing folks, they hate cancel culture so much that the president issued an executive order which basically declared that trans people don't exist. And so that's the two things going on here that kind of led to this. A lot of folks have complained that it's been 4 weeks of this. Well, first it was, I think the first two meetings were in reference to Council Nguyen and that situation, and then the third meeting, this petitioner and their supporters brought forward this petition. It is not their fault that it carried on to another week. The order, as the dumbest rule in the history of legislative bodies, any one councilor in the Worcester City Council, the first time an item appears on the agenda, can just hold that item for the next week, regardless of the reasoning. So they didn't ask for it to be continued. That was, in this case, Councilor Calorio, lost that for a second, who held the item and extended this to another week of public comment and discussion. So, there's some inaccuracies in the narrative about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it. I mean, what I see on the political, the dialogue sites, whether it's Worcester Political Dialogue or Seven Hills Political Exchange. By the way, I can see it now. I have access, so get to watch Colleen lose her mind on a regular basis on that one, which is great. So, anyways, it's not just inaccuracy, Tom. They look at they try to associate this particular resolution with the dysfunction of the city council as if this caused the dysfunction of the city council. And that's not true at all. The dysfunction of the city council predates this particular resolution. In fact, I guess the hubbub, right, and the passion related to this particular resolution was increased by the dysfunction of the city council because they couldn't get themselves on the same page, and apparently are potentially slinging around words that they shouldn't. And at least I have to take Councilor Nguyen's personal testimony seriously when they say that they don't feel safe or accepted. And because I know that's like a little bit, and I feel like there's a lot of folks who know what it's like to go to a workplace and not be accepted. And so or not feel comfortable, or not feel like everybody's on the same page. So that part, I feel like you can't deny. I hate that we have to use the word alleged when there's like 3 or 4 different people who have said they heard the particular exchange, but it is what it is. So that's the thing that's striking, is that the local folks that happen to be on another side, which I don't understand why there are sides, will say, this is caused by this. No, no, it's not. And then they cited the multiple upset meetings that have gone back into last year. Of course, a few of those were related to the Department of Justice report at the police department, or the ceasefire petition for Gaza, and other things as well, where people were passionate and talking about different things, most of the time caused by the dysfunction of the city council and the inability of our city to be managed and governed effectively.
Well, I mean, you know what I think about that. Well, we don't have an effective governing system, so here we are.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
The people involved. It's hard for me, at least, to make a ton, like to blame only the people involved when the system that they work within is the dumbest possible system ever.
Yeah, it's definitely a bad system, but the people involved have not covered themselves in glory to try to work effectively within the system that's broken anyways. They consistently cede power to the city manager. They make unnecessary public relations blunders, and they make constant backroom deals where they're not involving the community at all, and those things are obvious and clear. It's terrible, using personal emails to send messages to each other instead of using city emails, and thinking that'll never get dug
Allegedly.
up, or phone calls behind the scenes, and meeting in secret rooms with robes and candles and little skulls. Hey, that's actually cool. The EDCC is totally invited to the Dead of Winter Horror Festival. Bring your robes and your skulls with the candles inside, and you guys can come fit in at the festival next week. You'll be perfect. People sign autographs for you. You'll make $10 a pop.
So this resolution passed by a 9-2 vote. Councilor Clorio and Bergman voted against it. Both cited fear of losing funding, and sort of, I don't know if they twisted or kind of just ignored the report that came from the solicitor that said, there's an immigration related to immigration. Yeah, sanctuary city means a thing legally. Related to trans people, it doesn't. That's basically what it said, right? And there's no precedent for funding to be affected by a thing that doesn't have a legal meaning.
It has no legal meaning, no legal standing. It's just a statement. To answer Stephen's question, it doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't affect the members of the city. It doesn't change anything at all. All it is a statement. And so there was no rights affirmed. There was no laws changed. There was no anything. It was just a statement by the city council that they'll do what the law in Massachusetts already does. And so it didn't do anything. It doesn't affect the daily lives of Worcester residents at all. At all. No, they do not risk lose federal funding. Federal funding has nothing to do with a non-binding, non-legal resolution. It was just a statement by the city council. It doesn't have any legal framework at all.
So in response to the things we just discussed, the president, playing cancel culture with trans folks, and the local drama here, folks went to the city council and asked them to make to resolve that they agreed with the statement. So really, what it amounts to is a message that trans folks are welcome here, and that's it. And
what's wrong with that?
And I think it's perfectly legitimate, especially when your federal government tries to cancel you, to go to your local government for something and say, can you guys just say something? Like, you just say something? And they did. But there is no loss of no.
There's literally no legal. Again, maybe let me make this more clear to answer you. It has zero legal ramifications of any kind. There was nothing related to gender affirming care in the statement. It was just a statement about welcoming people to the city of Worcester, and that the city of Worcester would affirm the laws that already exist in our state. It has no legal power at all. It was just a statement. Just agree with the statement, yes or no. 9-2, agree. That was it. That's it.
Yep. So the funding argument seems spurious. I mean, there is maybe Trump hears about it and gets pissed off, but I don't think we should do anything because Trump might hear about it, or anybody might hear about it for that matter. I don't think we should do or not do anything.
I would love for him to come talk to me. That would be great. That would be excellent. I'll call him a coward to his face. I have no problem. That's the thing, is that no one has any guts. Right, you're right, at the national level, like they yelling out questions into the thing. It's just a word, though. Maybe I guess a national whatever. If you feel nationally targeted, then feel nationally targeted. I don't know what to say. It's just a word. It doesn't mean anything. There's no legal framework.
Yeah, and to that point, who was it that tried to amend it? Council Toomey, to her credit, attempted to suggest that maybe we could call it a safe haven rather than sanctuary city, in an effort to try and get to a unanimous vote. And I thought it was telling that the mayor said to her, she was virtually, because she was obviously sick, you could hear it in her voice. And the mayor said to her, I get you're not in the room, but you're not going to get there. So that seems to mean that it really wasn't the term that was the blocking to get to. I it caught my attention. It was kind of telling that according to the mayor, it didn't matter what the language was; they weren't going to get there on this, right? It was what he seemed to say. So this debate about the term sanctuary city really didn't seem to be the actual change, the actual point of the objection.
So let's talk real quick. So it always comes back to that word sanctuary city, and usually that's because of the vitriol directed against immigrants, right? So we have this trend that happened around the country where there was multiple cities that declared themselves sanctuary cities, for immigrants. But again, vast majority of those had no legal ramifications either. They were just making a statement. Now, policy-wise, there is a framework where you can say we're not going to give resources to the federal authorities, right? Which is what Boston has done. And in the past, New York, although the current mayor is not doing that, and other cities around the country have said, hey, feds, if you're going to come and arrest somebody, do it on your own time, with your own power and your own money. Because what you may or may not realize is that most of the time, to get a federal warrant for a U.S. Marshal to operate in a state with arresting power takes significant resources, right? Because you have to go in front of a federal judge. There has to be what's called a merging of the warrant. So then the state judge has to affirm the fed. There's a lot of resources. So in other places in the country, they'll waive those processes, right? In the sanctuary cities, in relation to immigration, what we've had over the past 6 or 7 years is several local municipalities and in the state say we're not going to help the feds do that. And so that's really what the big argument is about. And the thing is that constitutionally, that's an allowed thing. States do not have to cooperate with the federal government in every single situation. And there's really
immigration is the exclusive domain of the federal government.
True.
States and municipalities have no role in immigration whatsoever.
So the thing is that people get caught up on words. I really think that what matters to me is that you had a community of people, constituents, right, voters, who came together and they asked for their elected representatives to make a statement. That's what took place here. It doesn't matter the content of the statement. What matters is that constituents came together and put pressure on the city council, and they had an effective result, right? The result that they were looking for happened.
Yep.
So that shows to me, in my opinion now, that you could, in fact, exhibit that pressure on the city council on a regular basis to get other things done, which I've heard a lot in the Facebook chats and all the other places that people are upset. Well, let's get back to governing Worcester. I'm with it. I'm down. Let's look at that just for a second. So you're all experiencing the snow today, right? Everybody's experiencing the snow, and there was a storm earlier this week, and the city. Maybe we can get a vote in the chat. Did the city do a really good job of clearing the storm earlier in the week? How do you all feel? Was everybody happy? Oh, turns out that department is really poorly managed and has been for 40 years. We've never been able to figure out how to deal with snow in the city of Worcester, despite the fact that it happens every single year. And of course, we always blame the hills. It's the hills' fault, whatever. There's plenty of other hilly towns in New England that manage to handle it. And it's always stark to me when you drive on 12 into Auburn or Route 9 into Shrewsbury, or you go into Holden, and as soon as you cross over the line, it goes from piles of dark gray snow, just all mangled and various things. And then you go into those towns, nothing. Streets are clear. Streets are nice and bright. It's like, how do they do that? Like, why does it stop right at the line? It just is amazing how it just goes right to the edge, And so, I would love for effective governance to be a tool as well. And so I want to mention it to those communities that came together for this particular thing. Do the same for these other things. In fact, what would be amazing is if you took the same energy and same passion that you felt for this issue and you applied it to the ceasefire petition, or you applied it to communities of color experiencing discrimination with the police department. If that same coalition came together, I think you might see a little bit of shifting in the force of the city council, because I think what you saw was that there was money in the room, and some city councilors blinked. That's what I saw. I saw some blinking by some city councilors, and it was related to the money in the room.
And then the last point I had, the last point I had on this was Councilor Bergman also said in his comments that the petition conferred no new rights, which I found stunning, because resolutions don't confer rights ever.
Right. So then other resolutions that we talked about that had no legal meaning, if they didn't confer anything, are you saying, Tom, that they have the ability to tell other governments what to do? Are you inferring anything there? Man. Inside baseball, what's the politics right there? Oh man.
Yeah, really. Unfortunately, it wasn't unanimous. But it passed, and they said, so people came to them and asked them to say anything, and they did. Is the gist of it. It's the gist of it. And congratulations to those who were fighting for this. Well done.
Yeah, they did a good job. You can't deny it. They were effective.
There was another order that both you and I noticed on that agenda that was actually held, so it'll come back in 2 weeks. They don't meet this week.
10A, baby, 10A.
Yeah. Let's just call this the Civil War resolution, or the Civil War order. It is stunning. So what isn't included in the order and is included in the law that's referenced is may. So they may apply this standard, which is that in short, when there is accusations or conflict between counselors, this order says that it will be handled in executive session. So that can go into private, so they can do a backroom deal to make it go away. Because they like, and that's the thing is, for a council that gets very, very sensitive when people talk about backroom deals, then they have this order, the backroom deal order, on the agenda. How about no?
Yeah. How about no?
No. What we're not going to have is we have a 6-5 split. We're not going to have everything that's accused of the 5 laid out in public, because we may take it to executive session, and it happens to be an accusation against one of the 5. That'll happen in an open meeting, and if it's an accusation against one of the 6, it will go to an executive session. No, this will turn what is already not a great environment in council into a toxic one.
And even though this order was held, we saw some very, very interesting political exchange when Mayor Petty had the city solicitor sit down and explain this concept of talking about personalities or persons in relation to accusations. And to her credit, the new city solicitor repeatedly said the word may, repeatedly. And then Mayor Petty directed Councilor Hajiaj during her testimony to keep in mind what the city solicitor just said, right? So this was this really interesting exchange. And then on 4 occasions, Councilor Bergman, during the testimony of Councilor Hajiaj and Councilor Nguyen, kept bringing up, hey, that we can't talk about this, we can't, and he kept saying point of order, and then but the councilors persisted in their testimony, which they should. So the issue is not just to me about councilors, it's also about municipal employees. If a municipal employee is accused of something, the people have the right to know. Now, they also have due process rights, right? So like, if let's say it was a janitor in City Hall, to be nice and neutral. So a janitor in City Hall is arrested for murder. We have a right to know that arrest took place. What we don't have a right is to have the city councilors try to try the case in the middle of the session. But what they do is go into executive session and discuss that. But they can, in fact, do that discussion if they want it, because the law says may. As you said, it is an option up to them. They have to take a vote, and the vote then puts it into executive session or not. And to me, except in the most sensitive of situations, right? So when we're dealing with maybe an issue with crimes against children, or maybe there's somebody dealing with something in relation to that, maybe domestic abuse. I would think that the vast majority of the time you would want the city council to defer to the public having the right to know. And that this is only really about strategy. If you go into the fullness of that text, of that law, it's about strategy for how then the city council or the town council or the manager or whatever of the different municipalities in Massachusetts could then approach how to deal with it in a public relations way. This law was never intended for them not to talk about these things. It was intended for them to have an option on how to strategize without having it necessarily fall under the open meetings law. But let me say this, the executive session doesn't not keep a record.
Right.
This is the other thing that blows my mind, because they act as if they session and there's no minute.
And so you can file a public records request to get that stuff. However, you can't get it until the purpose for the executive session is no longer necessary, right? So in this case, it would be, to adjudicate some sort of claim against a counselor. However long that process takes, they can keep that stuff secret. Yeah. And and that's games you play with that all the time and all over government, not just here.
What was that guy, the governor in Ohio, Rod Blagojevich, that Blagojevich guy?
Illinois,
Illinois, that guy. So that was a very similar situation, because he had been charged, and it was like going through the appellate process, and he was still governor, right? And so, but no one knew about it until basically the appeals process was finished, and then it was like this big breaking story. But that was very much similar to what this would be. So if someone was charged and they went into executive session, we wouldn't know about it until the very end when the appeals process played out. In this particular case, that guy took it all the way to the Supreme Court, right? So we ended up seeing it all spread out all over the news and all that other stuff.
Didn't he get a pardon just recently?
Yeah, I think he got pardoned by Trump in the first one, the first set of pardons. So that's the thing. I think that what was interesting to me is that there's the way that it was written, and then the way that it was positioned by various local mainstream reporters. What is that the right way to put it? Maybe local personalities, was in relation to the DOJ report. And so it seemed like it was in relation to this specific incident. But I think that there's being an attempt made by the majority to hide things that they don't want to talk about, including maybe lawsuits and settlements. We know there was a recent executive session in relation to settling a lawsuit that they're trying to find a way to delay that information getting out. And I think that the people of Worcester, this is something you should really pay attention to. You do not want your city council hiding these things from you. They're just wasting your taxpayer dollars in these lawsuits, and they're losing. That's the other thing about it. That's really,
Well, they settle
really,
most of them. Yeah.
huh?
They settle. They said they just settle most of them, and
Yeah, they
it's a
settle.
fun trick that they play with this. And this ties into our next topic.
Yeah.
It's a fun trick that they play with this, in that while there's litigation pending, we can't comment on pending litigation, and then they settle, and then they just no comment. Then they'll never talk about it again. So we're never going to talk about it ever.
But see, the thing is that I think more and more, Tom, there is an interested fourth estate. So this is where you see the effectiveness of the press, right? So I've gotten a lot of, I've gotten a lot of pushback from City Hall, from various people asking me why we're talking about these things. Why are you guys talking about those things? Well, why not? Someone asked me the other day if you and I were related, because we hang out a lot, right? It was very 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 funny statement, but almost like kind of a dig, because it's like, oh, you're only doing that because you guys are related, like that kind of thing, not knowing that what we're trying to do. Yeah, I'll tell you who it was later. Not knowing
No,
what we're
we're
trying
doing
to
this
do.
because some of you folks that work at City Hall are imbeciles.
But, by the way, I knew that it would get a rise out of I know my buddy. So, but the thing that strikes me about that is that you do have a local growing and vocal press, that is not mainstream, like us, like Manny J Media, like Worcester Sucks and I Love It, and that is growing in, like, even Worcester Political Dialogue and the Seven Hills. You got a lot of these independent things, regardless of their particular thing, that are talking a lot about these issues off the Telegram and Gazette pages, right? So it's not really there that it's happening. It's happening in a different context, and you're seeing a lot of people interested. Our show is regularly 1,000 people. Manny's beating the city council stream on his stream now when he covers it, right? He's like dominate. The city's like normally gets like 3,500 views. Manny's getting 4,000 and 5,000 and 6,000 views. In fact, I saw that, so we posted on Facebook, we couldn't do anything about it, but Fox News took a clip from Manny J Media and popped it onto one of their little segments there. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Sue.
We can't because Facebook really technically owns it when you post it to Facebook. But anyways, which is something you and I have talked about in the past. Have a website, have versus Facebook. Where how do you get the content? But the striking thing is that when you see that there's this attempt to kind of like quiet everything down in relation to these other things, I think what's happening is there's too many things in the pot, and they're shooting out all over the place. And so the kind of folks that are the status quo folks are getting nervous, because it's constant now, right? It's not every week we're having these full city hall, the hallway is packed all the way to the back, and there's people singing and chanting and dancing and all kinds of stuff every single week. I mean, I wish it was like this around the country. I wish there was more engaged people that will get engaged with what's going on. I think it's a good thing, even if you don't agree with the petitioner's purpose. Isn't it good to have more people engaged with the process? Right? Don't we want that? Well, don't we want an engaged group of people?
But you have to understand, with these politicians, what they're interested in is their own political capital, and what they want to do is not have to say stuff, because when you say stuff, that's a liability, right? That was the real objection. I mean, let's just be honest. That's the real objection to the ceasefire resolution, the Gaza ceasefire resolution, was, oh no, the other side is going to yell at me.
Yeah. And that's what we've seen, right? Because when people say things, and that's what happens too, people actually, and by the way, I don't think you should be yelling stuff out that's bad, but I do think that there's a right for people to express their emotion. And so you do see that. You see that week after week now. People are saying shame, or they're saying, they're calling names, or they're doing all kinds of things now. And that is, by the way, consequences of public life. That's a consequence of public life. I mean, even myself, I'm not running for any position, but I'm owning a business in the city of Worcester and doing some things. I get some super negative feedback on a regular basis. In fact, with the police stuff, I got death threats. which was fun. But that's you do take those consequences when you decide to live a public life. I think that's the root of it, is that we have public people who don't want to be held to a higher standard. They don't, but they want the prestige and the trappings that come with being an official title or an official position.
Right. It's part of their identity, even though they're in a position that they don't do much because the system doesn't allow them to do anything. It was designed for them not to do anything.
By the way, real quick, the $500,000, the fund, there was actually a very interesting exchange again between Councilor Nguyen and City Manager Batista in relation to the $500,000 fund that was voted by the City Council. And I thought City Manager Batista answered it very succinctly in the way that the system exists. He said, "You voted for me to think about it."
That's the truth.
And that is the truth. And the city council, the rest of the city councilors, because I'm pretty sure that was also like 9-2 or 8-3. It was another vast majority of vote, or maybe that one was more. I don't know. I forget the vote total for that one. But what I hope the other city councilors who did vote for that, who may be normally in the majority that types to quash things, heard the city manager loud and clear when he just told you, is that he doesn't have to do anything that you tell him to do. He just has to think about it, and then I don't know that there's any way to change that except with charter change.
I also wanted to bring up, because we're kind of quasi into police stuff, and at this point it's not even about the police department anymore. It's about leadership. I mean, the 2 months ago tomorrow, December 17th. If you're looking for it on the agenda, it would be on the next agenda because it was done on the, it wasn't on the agenda. So when they do something that's not on the agenda, it has to be on the next agenda. But this council voted unanimously to have 5 special city council meetings related to the DOJ report. And when's the first one? Oh, we don't know because it hasn't been scheduled.
When's it going to get scheduled?
By
the way, there's nothing to say that those 5 meetings can't take place over the course of the next 20 years.
Yeah, or I don't think they need 20 years. They just need after the election.
Yeah.
Several councilors have talked about the importance of public safety in their job, and that's their primary responsibility. Well, when the people that are given extra powers outside of normal powers of citizenship to go find people who commit crimes, and they use those powers with ill intent, that's a threat to public safety. And you don't care at all.
They don't.
They don't care at all.
And then they won. And then, so then Mayor Petty made a statement, very interesting statement, I thought, when he came down to say that he was going to support the transgender resolution. He said that, "I think we can all agree that the enemy that we have is in Washington." Well, Mayor Petty, that's a very interesting statement. So, and that, I mean, I guess is in relation to what you may look at and say is unconstitutional or constitutional crisis or changes in this. Isn't one of those things unchecked power? And aren't we talking about the same thing here in the city of Worcester in relation to the city's police department having zero oversight for 9 years from the city council itself, having zero oversight from the city manager, having zero oversight being allowed for the Human Rights Commission, having any time you ask a question, if you ask a question about an officer lying on a police report, and listen, my face has been on Red Metro Worcester's Twitter for like 6 years now because I wrote the drone report questioning the dishonesty that the police department displayed during that process. And it was funny. I think I told you this before, but that was the proudest day of my life. Was the day that I got called a radical left-wing person and a secret MAGA incel on the same day because both sides disagreed with me about the same thing. I loved it. It was my favorite day ever as a journalist, right? It was like, all right, man, I'm doing something right if both sides are calling me the extreme side. But the point of it is that when you question them, they fight back in that way. And for Mayor Petty to mention that, to me, is very striking. So why wouldn't Mayor Petty then want oversight over this city, oversight over these departments here? If we're going to model something for the country, because that's what he's kind of indicating there, wouldn't you want that to be an effective way to govern the police department? Although in 2015 he said we were going in the right direction, I guess. So I guess maybe he doesn't think that it's important.
Well, in 2014 he there was no order, but in 2014 he also promised meetings to a group of people that had showed up at City Hall to voice concerns about the police department, and those meetings never happened. And it looks like we're going down the same path.
And by the way, so that's a great point, Tom. So this goes, and I've been saying this on a regular basis now. That's on you, voters of Worcester. That is on you right there. If you are upset about that in any way, if you're sitting there in your room watching on Facebook, you're checking us out on the phone, or you're watching this tomorrow or the next day or whenever it is that you check in, and then you leave a comment on Tom's thread saying Tom's dumb or whatever, right? By the way, Tom will respond if you say things about him. he will respond. So if you're looking for a response, go for it. But the thing that strikes me is that you're sitting there and you're upset, like, oh, I want Mayor Petty to do these meetings. Well, you didn't hold him accountable in 2014. You kept voting him in, right? So like, and the vast majority of you have continued to vote him in, and so there's where the consequences there. And he has very clearly articulated that he does not get pushback from constituents on this issue, because the people that he listens to, the constituents that he listens to, don't care about this issue until it affects them. So right. If in fact we do end up having federal intervention, you will watch as in lockstep you start to hear people complain and whine about that. But they haven't done anything about it here, so why should we care about their opinions when it comes from the national level?
It's
cowardice is cowardice is what I'm trying to say.
And I've said this before. I really thought when I first saw the press release from the DOJ that they were launching this investigation, they were announcing this investigation. It started well before that. I thought, oh well, this is the cover that they need, right? This will now kind of politically exempt them from from being responsible. Right? They're not responsible now. Look, they said it. We got to do something about it now. Right? And instead, certainly a majority of the council said, no, we have to wait for the results of the investigation. And I said, well, that would take 2 years. Or, any other normal person would say, that could be 2 years. Well, I'm going to wait for the investigation. So we did nothing for 2 years knowing that there was a problem. We've known for 20 years that there's a problem, but I digress. And then we did nothing for 2 years. Whatever was going on was just allowed to continue because we have to wait for the investigation. Now we have a report on the investigation, and there's not even an excuse. We're just going to wait some more.
Yeah, wait some more for the evidence that isn't.
And you know what? I mean, this would never happen because of because they are who they are, and then make a phone call and it would get changed. Just like they get the same police, not the same exact individual human beings, but people from the same police force will escort them out of City Hall just because people yelled at them. But so do they think we all get that? Are they like one of these people in Washington who thinks the average American makes about $400,000 a year or something? Is like so out of touch with reality. But they waited 2 years and they allowed it to go on, and I don't really care. Let's put this up. Oh, I'm getting mad. I'm talking myself into getting mad. I don't care if they retract it and apologize. Because we have lawsuits and we have BOPS reports that don't make any sense. When the people who are in charge of investigating wrongdoing by police officers are, one, at the police department, which is the stupidest thing anybody's ever invented, and two, clearly are there to make cases go away. Just read the reports. They don't make any sense, some of them. You have a problem, and you've had a problem for 20 years because you allowed the council at the time let a horrific leader who should have never been able to run a lemonade stand in the chief before the previous one. And then the previous chief wasn't exactly a prize either. So that's what you have when you have failed leadership for 20 years.
So, since Sean brought that up, the DOJ hasn't dropped this yet. It is the silence in relation to that should be telling you all something. If President Trump is moving as swiftly as he can to consolidate cases all over the country, which apparently there's a lot of consolidation on leadership decisions for Department of Justice related cases, right? So Pam Bondi, the new Attorney General, is taking over decision-making authority from U.S. attorneys, which is not hasn't been seen since the Lyndon Johnson administration, right? Even under Nixon, U.S. attorneys had kind of their own autonomous operation. But so we're talking 30, 40, 50 years of precedent on how Department of Justice attorneys operated. And but now we're seeing consolidation, centralized decision-making in Washington for DOJ attorneys. And so why have they not stopped this case? And it's very stark. And to me, I think somebody somewhere is doing a serious review. And that somebody hasn't been asked to resign like the 7 or 8 in a row attorneys in the Department of Justice in New York who were refusing to dismiss Eric Adams' case. By the way, how do you not, whether you're Republican or Democrat, how do you not look at that and go, this dude seriously must have had something wrong with him, because 7 lawyers in a row, all by including the Trump appointee, which blew my mind, because then Trump said on the news that person was left over from Biden, but that's not true. He appointed her, and he then elevated her when he came on board. It's crazy. That one blew my mind. Sassamon, that lady there. So good for her for being brave and standing up. But 7 attorneys in a row all refused to drop the case. And so you have to take that seriously.
And only after the case was dropped did the mayor of New York then decide, oh, I'll cooperate with the federal government. I mean,
yeah, he definitely wasn't intending to do that before, but now I can do it, right? Nothing there, no smoke, nothing to see here. Hey, have you seen those magicians, the 2 magicians from like Eastern Europe, and they hold up the gold thing, and like people step behind it, and then they go like this, and then they go, and the person like runs off, and then they're like, whoa. It's that kind of magic. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Those 2 guys. Tom, I gotta get you more memes, bro. I really do. I gotta get you more memes.
You know what? I kind of am a meme hater, because people like to debate by meme. Like, they'll just make a meme, or they usually find it, because the people that propagate this stuff are too stupid to make it themselves, and they'll just be like, Doge finds $4 trillion in bad spending, and then they act like it's a fact. You're lying. And when you take other people's lies and promote them, that's you lying. That's what you're doing, is you're lying. That's the word.
By the way,
that's the word for it.
In relation to the bad spending, right? So I love this stuff. I really, truly do. Of course, they're spending money badly all across the federal government. But I hope folks out there that are pro this particular version of it, that you have to look in the context of when those programs or whatever particular thing was voted in. So when you see that, like in this case, USAID spent X millions of dollars on whatever thing that the Republicans don't like, right? So they say they don't like X, right? My favorite being, by the way, the trans opera in Ireland. That was awesome, because my aunt called me from Ireland about it, which is a hilarious conversation. But anyways, so let's say they did spend that money, right? So that was appropriated funds by Congress, which has the right, the power of the purse, to appropriate funds. Whether you agree with it or not, that's a congressional thing that you should be talking to your congressperson about. Okay, but there are other programs that have been in existence in other ways around the country that were voted in by Republican Congresses. And if you notice the timeline of what's happening here, that's really important. Go look at the dates on those programs and then say, well, what about the other Congresses that voted on other times? Why aren't we looking at all that? So let's look at the Congress during Trump's administration. Let's go back to Obama, George W. Bush. Let's go back even further and look how much money there is. You did notice that the FISA court numbers were redacted. Did you notice? I don't know if anybody saw that. So FISA, those are the courts that were invented under George W. Bush that basically allow secret courts to happen against American citizens, right? Which continue to this day. You can be accused of being a terrorist and snatched up in the middle of the night, allegedly. Sorry, I don't want to get Tom and me hoodwinked into black hoods and smuggled off into Eastern Europe so we could get waterboarded. But those things were happening. Where's the budget for those? How come that's not being released, Tom?
I mean, look, I don't want to go down this road. Look, every agency in the federal government passes an audit except one, DOD. Its budget is what, 890 billion, and you haven't heard anybody over there looking for anything because half of the Pentagon budget is a corporate welfare program. So
he did say it. I do have to say that I did watch that press conference, and Trump said we're going to look at the military next. But I want to know what that means. Like, what does he mean? Like, I want to know. And also, where are these reports at? Like, I want to see the reports. Why don't I get a report? Why, if it's real, then show me the numbers. I want to see the numbers. You know what I mean?
We are on a tangent, sir.
Yes, we are.
I also wanted to mention one other thing. Police adjacent. Councilor King had an item on the agenda last week. He wanted reconsideration because he had some questions to ask the administration, or he wanted to say something about it, or something to that effect, for a transfer of $1.2 million into the Civil Settlements Fund. I forget exactly what they call it, but it's basically to pay off pay off people for wrongdoing done to them. And although they don't admit any fault and never talk about it again, and 6 councilors voted not to allow him to do that. These finance items that they take about 40 of them or 20 of them at a time, and they go yep, go, and it's mostly just transferring money that has to go through council. But very rarely are there any questions asked about them, and so they went through that process, and then he brought it back for reconsideration, and 6 councilors voted against it. That's how badly these people don't want to talk about. They don't even want anybody else to talk about it. To talk about things that happen at the police department that cost the city money. It's one of the most gutless votes I've seen yet, and these people are pretty gutless on a fair amount of the time. But if it's personal against him, grow up. And if it's not personal against him, and you just don't want it talked about, you're not doing your job.
You blew your
mic out. These people
there.
will allow this bullshit to continue to happen and do nothing about it. It's stunning.
Well, but here's the thing, though, Tom. There's no and I'm not saying that you wouldn't, or Manny, or Bill Shaner, or the group, like I said, the group of growing local journalists wouldn't ask these questions of the majority. But the majority has taken the very neat trick of never making themselves available to have those questions asked. So then they can say that I don't avoid the tough question because they just don't make themselves available to be asked, right? And so then,
right.
And no offense to Hank Stolz, right? But I understand what Hank is doing. So Hank goes on there and he has like a limited amount of things that he can ask, really. He's not allowed to just go hog and ask whatever he wants. And so that's the thing that happens in the city. No one really asks or gets to ask those questions. I would love to ask, Councilor Russell, who has spent many years talking about specific items, why he would vote against this. It doesn't make sense. It goes completely against him. He's one who's always talked about financial transparency and then votes against financial transparency. So it just doesn't make sense unless it was, again, a coordinated, preordained backroom deal to stop Councilor King. I did notice there was very limited comment here from other councilors, but there was frustration in the room. I don't know that they expected Councilor King to bring this item up for reconsideration. I think that often the majority thinks once they bury something the first time, it'll go away forever.
Yeah.
And so kudos to Councilor King in this case for putting it on. Now there's a vote on the record by all 6 of those councilors for voting against financial transparency. So now when you go and see them talk and they'll all be at, for example, the NAACP debate, and they're going to say how they're transparent, make sure you remember that they voted against transparency, and they really did. They completely ignored it and decided to deny our ability to see into what's going on in that money. And Tom's right. Maybe it could be that it's just a transfer and a this and a that and the other thing. But why
it was
don't let us
transferred
see it?
into the civil rights settlement. I think it was like civil rights settlements or something like that was the name of the account.
Right.
I mean, that's what it's for.
If
To pay
there's
somebody
nothing there,
off.
why don't they let us see it? Why don't they let us see it if
No.
there's nothing there?
Can't ask
They
questions
know
about it.
something's there.
Can't
They
ask
know
questions about it. Can't ask questions about it. So
By the way, I'll
and
give
look,
him $1.
you know,
What if I gave him $1?
I give Council King credit for at least asking for reconsideration. But you know, at the same time, there's just not as punitive as the slim majority of the council is on most anything. You know, the other side doesn't do anything procedurally about it. I would be asking for every finance item to be voted on separately by roll call. I mean, I would just bog the whole thing down.
So I'm with it.
I would hold every item that is for the utility companies and all the hot finance items every time they came up until this bullshit stops. Because it's nonsense.
Me too. Yes, I
That
agree
was
with you.
cowardice. Why don't you people just put the only polling place at the police station, and then you'll have the election that you're actually having. At least you'd be honest about it.
I would rotate my holds, Tom. I'd be like, all right, this week I'm going to hold all of your orders.
Oh my God! I mean, I would just bog the whole thing down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Complete and utter chaos. If I was ever elected to that, I would just, until they stopped, I would hold everything, every conversation, every pet project, because that's what you see. You see that these little, when it comes to actual things that we would need to know, they're going to hide it. But when it comes to the things that they want done, man, they go through really, really quickly. I'm interested to see what happens with 10A. Whatever number it'll be called in 2 weeks, Councilor Bergman's order on the May provision of the law there. I would like to see what happens there, because I want to see, again, are they going to vote for transparency, like they say? They're always talking about transparency and public accountability, always talking about it, but they're never doing it when it comes down to it. But now you got votes on the record. Those votes, good for Councilor King. He forced a vote, really, which looks like they voted against public accountability. That's how I read it, and that's I think most of us are interpreting it the same way.
Yep. Because we don't want to talk about that. It's an election year where logic goes to die.
Logic goes to die.
I mean, it's been to like their denial of this problem for as long as any of them have been there is infuriating enough. But now, just like this, it doesn't exist game that they're playing.
I just want to know what the money is going to. By the way, I get.
Who are you serving? What public are you serving?
Not this public. A minority, because again, and you can do that in a situation where when 22%, as we saw the last time the municipal election happened, right, 21.7%, that was actually a 20-year high. So 21.7% being a 20-year high is very bad. Right. So, you want 35, 45, 55% of the electorate to participate, and then you would have to see more and more of these votes take place. They definitely would. That is 100. I agree with that statement more than anything. They would hide. They would never want to be in front of the public if they didn't have to be. Never, ever, ever. That's why you're hearing now about 30-minute time limits and putting a timer up on the wall so people can see like a shot clock. All of a sudden, they want to restrict. Again, they want to restrict your speech. They want to restrict your participation. And for those of you who are okay with that, when it's in relation to the motion for the folks, the transgender folks, or the motion for the ceasefire, or those things, you will rue the day when then you have something that's important that you want to talk about, and they have a shot clock up there, and they've restricted your access to 30 minutes. And hey, well, come back next week. You know what I mean? Come back, 2 weeks from now. Get it on the agenda again. Blah blah blah.
And it was mostly about the ceasefire, but I mean the ceasefire resolution. But there's been more so in the public, related to this trans folks resolution. it was the city's got to get back to city business. City council doesn't do city business. City council is empowered to do exactly 3 things: hire, fire the manager, pass ordinances that it refuses to write itself, and outsources it back to the administration, a clear violation of the charter, and passes a budget it can't meaningfully amend in any way. That's it. That's the 3 things it does. All of these orders, they're begging. They're begging for the city manager to do something that they want them to do, or they're putting on a show. It's mostly nonsense, and they don't want to change it. They don't want to change it. There was an item about the charter in the municipal operations committee this past month. I was there. It was very clear that Councilor Clorio and Councilor Bergman intend for that to die there. They like the way it is. They want it to stay the same. Because they get to do, I don't know what. They don't get to do anything. So I don't know what the alert is. But what they do want to do is restrict your ability to run for office. That's really what the remote meetings thing is about. Because if you work till 6 o'clock and can't get there by 6:30, you can't run.
It was very, yeah. So the electronic participation thing, that is a very, very, very interesting thing. So I would just say this because I just happened to notice there's a few councilors watching that were very adamant about restricting Zoom. But those same councilors are very often on their phones during city council meetings. In fact, one particular councilor is very well. No, what I want to say is that how is it different to be actively engaged with your cell phone during a meeting is not as distracting as Zoom? Why? What's the difference between the two?
I don't think that's what the interest is. The interest is making it harder to run. Again, if you work out of the city, like most people that live in the city do, people that have been there for many, many years, how you doing? When are you going to improve that ever? But if you work out of the city like most people do, and you work till 6 o'clock and you have to be at a meeting at 6:30, you can't run. Because we have this dumb system of part-time councilors, so we only have retired folks and business owners. It's rare. We do have some folks with, Councilor King, Councilor GI have full-time day job careers. I'm not sure about anybody else that I know, but and I mean that's fine. They ran and they won. But when you can't run because of all these obstacles, either you can't afford to run as a district councilor because it's basically a full-time job and you get paid crap as a part-timer, or like I said, you have a work restriction or some other restriction, and you can't remote into the meeting, you can't run, and that they love that.
But hopefully, I mean, let's hope that.
Oh yes, you're right. Pardon me, Lewis is, I think he's an assistant principal at one of the schools in the city. Lewis does have a full-time job too, as well. My mistake.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about others too. I know, George has a business. I think Councilor Bergman has Councilor Russell has a business. Councilor Bergman has a business. Yeah, I think those 3 are the only ones that work full time. Outside of being a counselor, being a district counselor is a full-time job for which they get paid this year $36,000.
Super attractive to get that $36,000.
It's not much more than that. 42, I think. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure how much more it is.
I wonder if I could still have the same level of Swedish fish that I currently eat if I ran for mayor and got 42.
I mean, I could live on that. I've been training myself for that for years. But normal human beings.
Then run for mayor.
Yeah, Shawnee, but I mean,
he's not.
There's all types of lawyers never go to court. So
yeah, he does real estate law. He does, he does closings.
Contracts.
Contracts. Yeah. He's not a practicing civil or criminal attorney.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's business attorneys that, I mean, maybe sometimes they end up in court, but it's rare.
Yeah,
usually if the lawyer you'd have for your business, you would have somebody else litigate. Right,
but if you do want to look up the docketing for those kind of contracts, there is a way to do that. It's a little bit harder, but you can actually look that up too, Sean. We can talk about that. Sean, you better be coming in dead of winter. I haven't seen your name on the tickets yet. I don't want to hear no excuses, bro. In fact, actually, text me later. I'll give you a code so you can get a discount. Because he's a lifetime member.
Yeah, and
I'll
I must say it's not really like horror is not my thing, but I had a good time last year. It was good. It was a good time. So, and if you don't like one of the films, they're shorts. That'll be over soon, and move on to the next one.
Comes dressed up too, man. You get to see some cool outfits.
Yeah, no, it was a good time last year, and it's much more robust this year. So I encourage everyone.
A lot more people, a lot more stuff, a lot more. Hey, there's a cool vendor called Horticulture who grows plants into creepy things.
Neat.
Yeah,
well,
exactly. I want to buy something from that.
Personally, I think I've yelled enough today. What about you?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm tired. I am super tired. And
what have
but
you,
I have a cool question for you.
I was just saying, what have you prepared for the most popular part of the show?
It is by far. This is we've seen polls, national news has talked about this. The best part of the This Week in Worcester podcast is when John asks Tom about his favorite things. Last week we had the highest rated Super Bowl halftime show in history, which has led to a lot of controversy. A lot of people have taken the time to express their opinions about young Mr. Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance. And so, Tom, I'm not going to ask you to go down that path of discussing the messages sent by Mr. Lamar, but I would like to ask you. Connoisseur of football that you are, big time sports guy. Everybody knows Tom is huge into sports. Tom, what was your favorite halftime show of the Super Bowl of all time?
So I didn't watch the game because I've kind of graduated beyond football. I'm not graduated. I walked away from football. I had enough. So I don't pay much attention. Sometimes I watch some highlights or whatever. But I gotta say, maybe I'm being I'm captured by the moment. And I'm not a Kendrick person. My hip hop range is usually kind of old because I'm kind of old. But this one, and it's not close. I did watch the halftime show after the fact. This one, and it's not close. As somebody who a relative who I know and love dearly, but we are very different people. He was an Army Ranger, and he works in a law enforcement adjacent position now, I guess you could call it. And he picked out the Crip Walk because her I forget what it was, like somebody in her family or something was murdered by a Crip 100 years ago. And he thought it very disgraceful that she was doing the Crip Walk, a thing that's been in pop culture for like 25 years, right?
Not understanding, just openly expressing how disconnected they are.
But and I'm only using this person who I'm obviously not going to name as an example that I saw far and wide, which was people didn't get the symbolism at all, and it was loaded with symbolism. And all I said to those people is, whoa, if you could pick up on the signals that were being sent, you'd be so much more mad.
Did anybody notice that it was a video game controller on the stage? And that at the end of it, he says game over, but it's a video game controller. It's very, very interesting. A lot of symbolism, the flag being made out of people. I really thought it was great. I thought it was well done. I understand that, I do understand in hip hop culture, being a guy who loves hip hop, that Kendrick is a guy that if you don't know him, maybe it's hard for you to get him. But I don't know how you could miss the fact that he called Drake a pedophile. So I don't I don't know what else. You know what I mean? At the Super Bowl. So my favorite. So I will give this answer in two parts. So I would say that there's the great. This was good, but my favorite. I guess halftime show ever is also Sean's, which was Prince in the Rain, which was unbelievable. It was just nonsense. That was one of the best I've ever seen. But my favorite halftime show of all time did not actually take place at the Super Bowl. My favorite halftime show of all time was a Thanksgiving Day game way, way back. I think it was in 2000 or 2001 by Creed, where they had a dude flying like with like the ropes. He was doing like trapeze stuff. It was just nonsense. It was I think it was a Cowboys game, if I remember correctly. But that's like 25 years ago now. But it was one
I'm
of
not
the best
sure
things.
that you framed something as the best
Yeah,
that
it was the
involved
best.
Creed. I'm
So
not sure
here's
we
the
can be
thing.
friends anymore.
So let me just say this. I don't care what you say. If you like, oh, everybody likes to do this with Creed and Nickelback, right? It's these two bands, like, oh, they're this and that. You deep down inside, deep down in your core, right in here, there's been a time in your car when With Arms Wide Open has come on the radio. And Tom, I don't believe I don't believe you right now. You have sung that song with
No,
gusto in your car.
listen, I like 4 things that are
Where's
bad for
Lynn?
music. I am
Tell
the
Lynn to come tell me. I
most.
know she heard you sing that song.
I am the most. I'm just the most unrepentantly awful human being when it comes to discussing music, because I like 4 things and you don't like them, and I don't like anything else. But I will say this: the greatest thing I've ever seen on Facebook was the old Facebook version, maybe 2 versions ago, right?
Yeah,
And when you could search everything, basically, right?
the full
And
F. Yeah.
yeah, and it was these, like, I forget what the message was. It was like, these people on your friends list are like a clear and present danger or something like that, right? And you clicked on it, and it was everybody on your friends list that liked Nickelback.
That was actually no. I
It was
remember that. That was actually
hysterical.
that was the cool thing. He just mentioned My Sacrifice. So that album, but I like that there was a song My Own Prison, which was epic back in the day, right? So I get what you're saying. They did go schmaltz later on in their career, but early Creed was pretty dope. Pretty dope.
No.
And Scott Stapp can sing. I don't care what anybody says. That dude can sing. That dude can sing like nobody's business.
That's
But
the dude that's married to, what's her name? Is that the dude? She was in that poppy wannabe punk band, blonde girl, Gwen Stefani. Isn't the singer married to her, or am I get that all screwed up?
No. That's the country. She's married to the country dude. Blake Shelton.
Oh, well, that's how much I pay attention to that stuff.
But the Prince one was the best that I ever saw, and I thought Prince is just the one. I mean, he's in the handful of greatest musicians that have ever lived. Beethoven, Mozart, those kind of guys, and he's unbelievable. And what he did that Super Bowl was just ridiculous. And by the way, shows you what a great sound guy. For those of you who deride sound guys, a great sound guy can do a lot, even in the ring. Just so you know.
Yes, that is
well
noted.
Sound guys rule, dude. Sound guys for life.
And just a last sports anecdote. Did you happen to catch USA Canada last night in the tournament they're doing? I forget what it's called already. 4 Nations.
I saw the fist fight.
Oh no, there was 3 of them to start the game. There was 3 of them.
Was it the middle one where the dude just absolutely annihilated? It was epic. I haven't seen one of those in a long time. That was awesome. That second fight was awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, by the time the third one was over, just 9 seconds had come off the clock. And then the rest of the game, I mean, I don't think there was another fight. I didn't watch the whole game. But it was rough, and they all wanted it. It was good stuff.
But by the this is, I know they're only doing like the 4 Nations thing or whatever, because no Olympics. This is hockey, dude. Like, I love that part of hockey. It stinks that the NHL has. Well, and I'm okay with the NHL taking away dirty hits, right? Because Donald Bashir and all that, like that kind of stuff is bad. But I told you my favorite hockey player of all time was PJ Stock, dude. And PJ Stock was only there for one reason, and he was to go in and fight. And he was a little dude, but that was his whole job, was to get in, beat a dude up, and get out.
PJ Stock is still weird. So yeah, I would say there was a lot of excitement for the game last night. And it seems like whatever there is of hockey fans, which is it's obviously the smallest of the major sports, but whatever there is of hockey fans are really into this, and it's I would say big success.
By the way, the numbers, the little just like track sports popularity numbers are in. It looks like WWE has shot to like third. It's ahead of baseball now. That's great.
So weird. I believe that is all. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, just come to the Dead of Winter Horror Festival. If you want something cool to do next weekend, it's just there's an amazing amount of stuff. Like I said, there's 2 days at Mechanics Hall. Saturday night, there's also a concert at Ralph's Rock Diner. You can get tickets at deadofwinterentertainment.com/festival, and you can come see 2 movies that I produced: Shift, which was by Bridget Cannell, a young girl from Rutland, and then Soulless with my buddy Tommy Dwyer. And then you'll hear us on the radio and a bunch of different places all over this week. We're trying to bring legitimate filmmaking to Worcester. High quality, good film, sustainable filmmaking. People can work in the industry, bring new economic activity to the city of Worcester. Not in the last 40 years of city council operations economic activity. Secret closed room deals with developers. We're trying to bring new things here, working hard and doing cool things with the talented people of New England and Massachusetts and Worcester in particular.
And remember, it's school vacation week, so City Council will not be meeting this week. We will not be here on Sunday because of the Dead of Winter Festival. So we will see you in 2 weeks after the council meets again. It's like Tuesdays are here to ruin our lives every week. We will try to screw it up less next time. Until then, this week at Worcester out.